Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Station and this series of videos which was recorded during the 2011 Rab TGO challenge, which for the uninitiated is a 200-mile walk from the west coast to the east coast of Scotland, organised by TGO magazine, and the entry forms for it can be found in the October issue each year. Now what I've tried to do in this video is record well, the landscape and what the experiences are like to actually do a 2-week walk of this nature across that sort of landscape, showing you the routes we took and also some of the weather conditions. Sadly, the weather conditions this year weren't particularly good, which resulted in us doing very few pieces to camera. We had hoped to do a lot more in camp and explaining sort of the equipment we've used and the reasons why we chose it or taken it. However, what we've done this time, because of the situation, is we've still recorded the event, we've recorded the conditions as best we can, and we've broken down equipment reviews at the end of each of these videos. So, I hope you enjoy it, and here's our experience of walking across Scotland in 2011. Let's now come on to the cooking systems we took. First of all, I must explain that we actually took 2 cooking systems this year, and there's a reason for that. I took this one, which is in an Evernew 1300ml pot, and Rose took this one, which was in a solo set, and I'll break these apart and show them in a second. We decided to, or the reason we took 2 was very simple. We wanted to have some photographic images of the products that we were using in situ being used, and also it gave us a little bit more flexibility as regards our cooking habits. The idea being that if it was a lovely evening, we would both be cooking on 2 separate stoves running off meths, and Rose would be looking after the puddings or the sweet, and I'd be looking after the main course. Sadly, as we've explained and as everybody else has no doubt mentioned, this particular year it was unfortunately very wet, and it was the last thing we felt like doing. So yes, it does seem a bit of an overkill. The other thing is, had we not taken the solo set that Rose had, then she would have been able quite easily to have fitted her contents into a Go Light Jam rather than the Pinnacle rucksack. So let's now look at these 2 units. We'll break them apart and you can see what the contents were, and I'll explain the reason I took them. Okay, so first of all, before we come on to the contents of the cooking pot, let's just go through these. This is the Trangia 500ml meths or fuel bottle. It doesn't necessarily meths, but other fuels as well, with a safety valve on top, and I carried this and Rose carried a spare bottle, and we, for the 2 weeks trip, cooking in the morning and evenings, we used 2 bottles of meths. So a little bit more weight wise than had it been gas, but this is great because it's a nice tough bottle. As I say, Rose had the spare tucked out of the way in a safe place. So that was the reason we took that. On this side we have our folding plate, an old Orikaso folding plate, which we just swear by. We always tend to chuck these in the back of the rucksack, down the back. During the finer weather, it's lovely to be able to chop things up on here and you know, have a picnic, if you like, almost off these things. And should you need to, they fold nicely into bowls, which allows you to have more wet substances in there, soups, stews, whatever it might be. And we did use it like that a couple of times to mix up the smash. So again, it's a thing that always goes into our rucksack. This is a simple screw top plastic container, which you can pick up from any Lakeland type shop, you know, cooking shop or whatever. The way it works is we use a food dehydrator, so we dehydrate our food into individual plastic bags, and then when we come to rehydrating the meal, we put the whole plastic bag in there with the top of the plastic bag over the top of this, fill it up with water, and then screw that down so it seals it inside the plastic bag, and that then starts the rehydration process off. You don't have to do that, we just find it just makes things a little bit quicker when you get into camp. So let's just move that out of the way and that out of the way and come to the main event. One net bag to keep it all together nice and tidy, which is useful. Now this is a double pot cosy system. Most people recognise this pot cosy material. You can see it's got a lid which goes on top of the base like that, and the pot cosy itself, one layer of this is incredibly efficient stuff, but when you double layer it like this, we had food that was still piping hot in around 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and it's absolutely brilliant for saving fuel and for simmering food. So that was our pot cosy system. As I say, this is the Evernew ultralight 1.3 litre pan, and inside there we have my collection of cooking goodies. So let's just quickly go through that. For cleaning things afterwards, we have a little spongy, a little bit of washing liquid, which I put in an old Avid container there, which is nice, useful. Just put a squirt of that in there and just boil it up, and that works well. The Evernew meths burner, extremely light, very, very tough titanium, and very, very powerful, so that was great. A scraper, again you can pick these up from little cook shops, very, very useful for scraping the tougher parts of your cooking, should we say, from the pan, should it have got stuck there. The Evernew 400ml mug, a bit bigger than the normal 300ml mugs that you get, which is lovely, and it also means you could poach an egg in there if you needed to or whatever, but yeah, that was my mug of choice. A folding spork, you need to be able to eat it with something. A flint and steel, I find the flint and steel is the only way to light a meth stove, and I will do another video at a later stage on how best to do that. I think people seem to be struggling with using a flint and steel. A whisk, now not something you'd necessarily think of as being a useful item, but it is, you can see, very, very small whisk, again from a typical cookery accessory shop, just useful for whisking up fine powders like custards and not couscous, but custards, what was the other one we had, semolina, coffees, and things like that, and just get a good mix and get the most from your powder really, and not very heavy, just a useful accessory. Then in here we've got tinder card, and I've kept that in a plastic bag there, which is useful if you're going to have a wood fire, and the reason we might have had a wood fire is that in the bottom of this we have the honey stove. That's the backpacking light honey stove there, complete with an extra bit of metal. So we had the titanium trivet, which would sit on here should we wish it to do so, and that would then be, you could put the pot straight on top of that. But we had the honey stove, and with the honey stove, we didn't take all the parts, we had a new piece that I've been testing, which fits the Evernew. So the Evernew sat inside there, they had the honey stove as acting as a pot support and windshield, and that really increased the cooking efficiency of the whole system, which was really useful. So the whole lot packed down inside there, and we pretty well use this consistently. We had all our meals basically cooked in that. Once it got to boiling point, we just dropped that into the pot cosy like so. Where's the lid? Lid on top, and drop that on top of there, and then left that for well, a good 10-15 minutes, possibly even longer, to really rehydrate, and obviously if it was rice or pasta or whatever, get that really fat and juicy, and or stew. Had a lovely stew on many occasions, and it was just piping hot. And to be honest, rather than pop it onto our individual plates to eat, we usually were so hungry we just took the lid off and both ate it straight out of the pan. So we could have managed with just that quite happily, and in some respects I think arguing we could have done, and perhaps we could have managed without a few of the items as well, but as I say, partly we took it for photographic reasons, and partly we took to test and experiment and make sure everything was working as we think it should do. So that was the content of my cooking set. Now let's have a look what was inside Rose's, and there's a lot of similarity there. Right, like me, Rose had a double pot cosy system like so, which she kept everything in. There's the solo set, and the solo set with the mug on the outside, which was fantastic. Inside that then you had the DX stand and the trivet sitting on top there, like so, and the meths burners inside there. You obviously had the eating tool, folding spork, a flint and steel to light it, a little bit of washing up liquid there, and a scourer pad and J-cloth, and of course the bag there as well. And that pretty well was Rose's kit. Did we use it? Well, she certainly used the spork, but I don't really recall her using much else, probably apart from the scourer pad occasionally, and the mug of course. So we didn't have the time, sadly, to make the most of our camping experience and enjoy the cooking, which was a great shame, But there you go, such is the fun of being prepared. But as you can imagine now, having gone through everything, if we remove certain elements from Rose's rucksack, the cooking system, which she didn't really need, and the bottle of champagne, which was very nice, but also takes up a lot of space, and a few other bits and bobs, then she could have managed quite happily with a jam pack, or possibly even a peak, which is about 40-45 litres. But perhaps that would have been pushing it with the amount of clothing that was needed for the weather. So that's the cooking systems brought to a close.
sense, isn't it?